Hello everybody and welcome into a brand new Civilization 6 tutorial. My name is Bradley. I'm a deity level Civilization 6 player here to help you get better at putting down your first city, the mama bear of all cities, your capital. This is part 1 in a series I'm doing on placing your cities, and today we are focusing on your capital city. This is a question I get a lot in my live stream, on my YouTube videos, and a lot of other content creators also get the same question. How do I know if I'm settling a good first city? So we're going to talk about why a good first city is important. Then we are going to talk about some of the rules you should look for, some of the things you should look for in settling your first city. And then we're going to talk about some questions we should ask before we settle our first city. And then at the very end, we're going to look at some mechanics, some weird things that you might not know about settling cities, but they're kind of off and we can put them at the end. All right? So first, why is a capital city so important? Your capital city, first off, is really important because it's in the game the longest, right? If you play a game till turn 300, your capital city was providing you with resources, production, food, gold, whatever it is, for all 300 turns. If your 8th city is amazing, it's the best city ever, it's doing so much, it might only be in the game for 100 turns or 150 turns, right? So its value to you is less because it was in the game a less amount of time. Whereas this city, whatever it's doing for you, good or bad, it's doing for you for the entire time. So it's really, really important, just mathematically, for this game to be successful, that our capital city is really, really great. Now, if you're playing on lower difficulties, it probably doesn't matter too much. If you're playing on deity, having a good capital city and a good starting location is imperative if you even hope to win the game. So let's take a look at this city and let's talk about some of our options here and some of the things we should be looking out for. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about if you're new to Civ 6 is the settler lens. If you're not new to Civ 6, you can skip over this. If you click the lens button and click settler, this is also hotkeyed. If you want to check your hotkeys, you can go to the settings and change them. If you click the settler lens, this settler lens gives you a lot of information about settling cities. The first thing it's telling me is all these green tiles have a source of fresh water because they're next to a river. You can see that there, right? So fresh water gives us +3 housing, which is really, really important for growing. Coastal cities give us +1 housing. These gray tiles, I can settle them, but there's no water there. And these red tiles indicate I obviously can't settle on the mountain, but the tiles will also turn red if they are too close to another city or another city-state, because you can't settle too close to other cities, right? So just familiarize yourself with the lens. It's also telling me that these are floodplains tiles. So I know if there's a flood on this river, these tiles might get damaged or improved. It goes both ways sometimes, depending on your disaster setting. It'll also tell you if you're under a volcano and the volcano erupting will damage or improve those tiles. So it tells you a lot. So this settler lens is quite important. For your second settler onwards, you will get the settler lens when you just click on the settler. But for the opening one, you actually have to click right here. Now, let's talk about our capital city. Let's just settle this city in place. Let's not move a muscle. And let's just talk about it. I picked this start because there's some good things and some bad things that we can talk about. Also, playing as Rome means I don't need anything really special. I always recommend Rome to new players. It doesn't really have anything in the way of abilities that I need to focus on settling my capital city. Right? So I settled on a Plains Hill tile, which is giving me 2 food, 2 production, right down here. Right? If I click this, the city toolbar here and click Manage Citizens, I can pick a tile, right? I can pick a tile for my other citizen to work, and the citizen will give me whatever is on this tile. So I'm going to pick this tile right now. It's the one that was automatically picked as well, which gives me 2 food, 2 production. Okay? And I just want to show you how this mechanic works. So right now, if we take a look, if I click on this 3 production tile and 1 food tile, and I go and produce, let's say I want to produce a scout. Because I have this 5 production, it's going to produce the scout in 5 turns. Right? If I go and I change the citizen and I go back to this, let's head to the 1 production tile. Let's get some gold, let's get some food, and let's get some production, but it's only 1, so we're going down from 3 to 1. Now we only have a total of 3 production. How long does it take to build the scout? 6 turns, so it went up a whole turn, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the mechanics of settling your city, and you need to know these mechanics for what we're about to talk about. So I'm going to go over right now a set of rules I like to follow, generally speaking, not always, but a general rule of thumb rules, things to consider when you're settling your first city. In my first city, I absolutely need a few things. I need at least an option of 4 food for production. 4 food for production gives you the best growth to production rate. Now, there are some situations where I might want to produce faster or I might want to grow faster, but 4 food for production allows you to grow and produce units at a good rate, and it keeps you kind of level in the game. If you have like 2 food and 8 production, you can produce a whole lot of units, and that's really great, but you're not growing in population. If you're growing in population too quickly, but not producing your units, right? I want to get a scout on this map. I need to see other city-states to get the first meets. I need to go find all the tribal villages and the goodie huts, and I need to see this map. So I don't want to wait forever on my scout with low production. So I find 4 food for production. If you can get that on your first kind of city settle, right, that's perfect. The next thing I need is housing, right? So I need to settle on freshwater or a coastal city. You can always plan for aqueducts, but if you look here, aqueducts don't come until later in the game down in engineering. And so you're not going to get an aqueduct for a long time. So having a source of housing, remember, whatever this city gives you, it gives you for the entire game. So starting with some housing is really, really nice. We got that here by settling next to the river. Again, you can tell the housing by... Ooh, you can see all these tiles are red now because we can't settle them. Never mind. So that's what happens. That's the difference between the settler lens. Once you've settled a city, all these tiles are too close to settle another one. All right. So I need 4 food for production. I need to be on fresh water. I need to be able to settle the city within 2 turns. If I'm settling on turn 3, that's probably too late to be settling my capital city, and I should probably just restart the game to find a better starting location. So you need to be able to settle on turn 1 or turn 2, and it's almost never that I settle on turn 3. There are so few starts that are worth settling on turn 3 and losing the 2 turns of whatever your city gives you that I almost never do it. Right? I almost always settle on turn 1 or turn 2. And is it the last thing I need? I have some notes over here. No, there's 2 more things. The next thing I want to think about is, do I have good tiles that I can work without builders? Right? I'm not going to have builders for a little while here, and I need animal husbandry to work this. I need... Oh, no, I can put a farm down here. I need irrigation to work the tea, right? So I'm not going to have builders for a little bit. I need to be able to work good tiles without builders. It needs to be self-sufficient. So this tile is good to work without builders. This tile is good to work without builders. This one's all right. So I have 2 really good tiles, right? 3 food, 1, or 3 production, 1 food is nice. 2 food, 2 production is nice. The rest of this is kind of but at least there's 2 of them. So I do have 2 tiles I can work without builders. And the last thing, this is a bonus, is if you have a really, really good district location that you can put down. Now, you can make the districts work in all kinds of ways, but right here we have a +5 campus. You get +2 from the geothermal fissure, then +1, +2, +3 from these mountain tiles. So this right here, it's a really, really good campus, right? So really what you want to think about is, do I have 4 food for production? Do I have housing? Have I settled on turn 1 or turn 2? Right? And do I have tiles I can work without builders? Because this city's going to keep growing, right? And so you need to have tiles for it to grow into, for your citizens to work. That makes sense. Now let's talk about some of the bad things about this start. You might think, wow, this start's amazing. You've met all your rules. You seem to be on a roll. Let's talk about some of the things that aren't going so well for us. First off, these mountains are all dead tiles. So it's at least 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles that my city's going to grow into that I can't move units through, that I can't work, that aren't giving me food, production, gold, those types of things. So 4 is a totally acceptable amount, but it is good to know how many dead tiles you're going to have in your city, because I can't work these tiles. They're not very great. The next thing I'm seeing is that I'm going to put a campus here. So 1, 2, 3, 4... tiles aren't really doing a whole lot for me, right? Even when I do grow into them, They're not giving me a whole lot. Again, I'm not going to have builders for a little bit, so I'm not really growing into too many tiles that are doing a lot for me. This 2-2 tile is nice over here. And the last thing I want to take a look at here is the floodplains, right? So the floodplains can work to your advantage or not, but it's like, do you really want floodplains here? It depends on your game. It depends who you're playing, but it's good to keep in mind that this is going to flood for sure. For better or for worse, this is going to flood. And another thing I'm looking at here is that I have a lot of chops, right? And this is something good. If I want to put a wonder down, let's say I want to put the Great Bath down, or I want to put Temple of Artemis down, right? I can chop 1, 2, 3 jungles out, right? I can chop these out and get that wonder secured for my empire. So all in all, it's a decent start. I get a good district, I get my housing, I get my production and food, I get some chops. I don't have a lot of great tiles to grow into, right? The luxury resource I have is tea, which is not the best. But overall, I hope that was helpful in analyzing at least this first start and going over some of the things we're going to look for. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some mechanics about settling, right? I'm going to settle on this geothermal fissure to show you what happens. I'm going to settle on this T to show you what happens. And then we're going to go and analyze a few starts just to see how we apply our different rules to a few different situations. I'll see you in 2 minutes. All right, everyone, we are back, and I'm about to settle on this T resource. And to show you effectively what happens when you settle on the T, I had to meet another civilization, so I have moved my warrior all the way up. We have met Monsoon Musa. I do not recommend settling a city on turn 8, but here we are. We are going to settle on this T right here. So you'll notice what happened is I kept the science from the T. So that's number 1. You can see when you go over this T tile here, it's giving you 1 science. If you settle on the T, it keeps that science. And that's the same for any luxury resource that gives you science, culture, those types of things, right? You'll keep that resource. So now I'm getting an extra 1 science per turn. So that's good to know. The next thing that happens is that I can now trade this T. If I go to make deal, I can trade this T with Monsoon Musa for gold right away. So if you look here, it says that T requires irrigation. And if I look at my research, I don't have irrigation, right? So instead of going all the way to irrigation and then getting a builder to be able to get this T, I was able to pick up the T by just settling on top of it. Now, trading it to Monsoon Musa will give us a little bit of gold. And from that gold, I can buy traders, I can buy archers, I can buy whatever I want. Right, but you're getting an amenity, you're getting a luxury resource earlier in the game than you normally would by settling on it. So we can talk in a different video about when you should and shouldn't settle on luxury resources, and I'm hoping those examples come up as we rotate through some scenarios here and talk about some different start locations. But I just wanted to show you that mechanic right there. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to settle on the geothermal fissure to show you that mechanic, and I'll be right back. All right, everyone, we are back. I have settled on the geothermal fissure. As you can see, when you settle on the geothermal fissure, you get that science yield as well, so I wanted to show you that. But what I really wanted to show you here was settling on a geothermal fissure is really, really helpful because you can't really do much with this tile until very late in the game where you can put geothermal plants on them. But it keeps the geothermal fissure on the tile, which is different than settling on some other tiles where it'll clear the woods, or it'll clear the rainforest, it'll clear whatever's on the tile, right? But keeping the science, but keeping the fissure is important because now if I go, I had to skip a lot of turns. We're on turn 19 right now. If I go to our production here and I want to click a campus, I still get that +2 from the geothermal fissure. So remember how earlier I said this would be a +5 campus? Well, here it is. I didn't lose the bonus of the geothermal fissure just because I settled on it. So a reasonable thing to do might be to settle on this geothermal fissure. You put your +5 campus down here, right? And then maybe you want to put a commercial hub along the river, whatever it is, right? But you don't lose the bonus from the geothermal fissure because you settled on it. So that's a good mechanic for you guys to be aware of. The last thing I want to do is settle on this deer here so you can see what happens, and then we'll re-roll and we'll just talk about a bunch of random starts. I'll be right back. All right, everyone, we are here yet again, and we are going to settle on this deer to see what happens here. So remember, the deer is not a tradable resource. You cannot trade the deer. You can put a camp on the deer, but it's not something I can trade. So unlike settling on the T, this isn't something if I settle on it, I can trade it because you can't trade it anyway. But let's settle on it. Do you want to found a city here? It will remove the woods on the tile. So it's going to get rid of the woods on the tile, which are providing it with a little bit of production right now. But we'll settle here. So you can see it turned into a 2-2 tile. We added the food from settling our empire, but we actually lost one of the productions from having cleared the wood off the tile. And because we got rid of the deer, I don't get the gold that I would have got, right? So it still says the deer is on the tile. It requires animal husbandry. Right, it still says that, but I can no longer put this camp down because I can't put a builder in my city to put a camp down. So I've lost the ability. So even though it still says the deer is on the tile, just like it said the T was on the tile, when you settle on a luxury resource, you get that resource to trade, right? If I settle on here, I kind of just lose it because they don't have the ability to put a camp down. So that's just the mechanic I wanted to show you. Now we're going to take a look using our rules and our questions and what we know about different settling mechanics. These are just the ones I could show you with this start. I'm sure there are other ones, like there are thousands of different things you want to consider. But let's restart a few times and talk about some different settle locations. All right, everyone. So we are here. And we have what looks to be a good settling location. So let's break it down a little bit. Right? I only had to reroll twice for this. So right now, I'm looking at all the tiles I can settle within 2 turns. Because that's a rule we have. We need to settle within 2 turns. Right? So I can go here, here, here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different options. 8. To settle within 2 tiles. Right? I can't go over this woods onto this, or I can't go over this rainforest onto this rainforest. It takes up too much movement. So that'll be a turn 3 settle if I settled over here. Right? So what I'm seeing is not great. Right? If I settle on the stone, that's a 2-1 tile. If I settle here, that's a 2-1 tile. Right? I don't have a lot of good tiles for anybody to work. If I cross over here, that'll be a 1-1 or a 2-1 tile, sorry. But with 3 food, 1 product, like there's no way here for me to have housing that I need from the fresh water and to have 4-4 off the top, right? There's no way for me to really do it, right? I can move down here, settle, and get close to 4-4, but then I don't have any housing, which is not great, right? I can come across the river, but because there's woods on this furs tile, it would take 3 turns to settle, but I'll show you that. So if I go here, right, and I go next turn, and then I go onto the woods, I can't settle till the 3rd turn, right? So that's not great, although I would get the foxes. There's also no good district that's standing out to me. There's nothing great that's standing out. I mean, are there floodplains here? There's no floodplains, so it doesn't, this potential industrial zone with like quarry, aqueduct, dam isn't going to happen. So this looks like there's a lot going on, but it's actually a pretty awful start. And I hope that makes sense to everyone as to why, right? There's no way to get a good base. There's no way to put a good district down early. There's no way to really do a lot of the things I want to do early on in the game. And if this was my 5th city, this would be fantastic. But remember, we're looking at the city that's going to propel us through the game. It's the first city. You only get one of them. It's going to be there the whole time. I'm looking for better than this. Although this is completely winnable. Again, don't get too in your head. Like settling here and playing the game, like just have fun. But using the analysis we just talked about, this doesn't meet really any of the requirements we're looking for. So we're going to look for another one. I'll be right back. All right, we are back again, and the only reason I even want to talk about this start is because it goes over 2 different examples, a good and a bad thing that we haven't really talked about yet. We talked about dead tiles earlier as mountains, but I want to show you that desert tiles can also be dead tiles, right? In my capital city, I'm going to be a little bit busy with other things. I won't be able to commit to building a Petra here to make this desert work, and so if I settle here, when my city grows into these tiles, they're all dead. Like, what am I going to do with these tiles? right? So this is just another example of the dead tiles thing I was talking about. The same goes for lake tiles. Any lake tiles, they're not very helpful either. Like, what am I really going to do with those tiles? But I want to show you a good thing, right? Earlier we talked about districts that were very, very helpful, like having that good campus earlier. But I also want to show you that a good wonder can be nice too. Having a flat desert tile means I know I can put pyramids down, right? Where are the pyramids at? Pyramids are a great early wonder. They come fairly early in the game. They're right here. They're in masonry, so they're right here. They come fairly early in the game. The AI doesn't really like to build them. They're easy to grab, so that is a good thing. This start is terrible. There's no good districts. There's no way for me to get that 4-4 I'm typically looking for. I suppose if I did settle here, it would be a 2-1 with a 3-1, so it's pretty close. But I'm not getting any of the things I want. I can't grow into good tiles. There's not a lot of good tiles to work. It's just a terrible start. But I did want to highlight the pyramids. Like, you need to be thinking about these things all the time. What are the wonders I want to put down? What are the districts I want to put down? What can I do with this? And so this is something I could do with this. If someone forced me to play this out, I could put a pyramids here. But I just wanted to show you that these are all also dead tiles. Again, if this is my third or fourth city, and I can settle here, chop all of these out, and get a Petra, that's fantastic. But as my first city, I'm not going to be able to do that. I have other things going on, so this is terrible. All right, we are back, and we finally found a start that wasn't terrible. Let's talk about this one. So another mechanic I haven't really talked about is plains hills. If you hover over a tile, it'll say at the top plains hills, as opposed to this one here, which says grassland hills. If you settle on a plains hills tile, for whatever reason, I'm not actually sure why, but it'll be a 2-2 tile, as opposed to this grassland hills, which will be a 2-1 tile because we're getting rid of the woods. Why that happens, I'm not really sure, actually. I haven't really thought about it too much. I just know that it does, so it doesn't really matter. So right now, I can meet a lot of the requirements we're looking for in a capital city. Is it the best one ever? No. But can I complain about this? Also, no. This is a playable start. All right? Let's take a look at it. First, let's look at our settler lands. I moved my warrior to get as much vision as possible. I see the river goes up here with fresh water, but I can see the river goes down here as well because this freshwater tile. I can see that there's floodplains here, which means there's going to be some floodplains over this way as well. Right, so that's good to know. I know if I settle on this plains hills tile, I get a 2-2 with 2-2 to work, so I'll have my 4-4 base that I'm looking for. I can also move up here and settle on this plains hill tile, although there's a bit of a risk to that because I don't know what tiles are here. And this amber tile is quite nice as well. Right, I'm not going to be able to move down to the amber if I wanted to settle on the amber. I don't want to move over here because I either lose my freshwater or my 4-4 base. So these two tiles are really my only options. Right? So what I would do if I were you guys is actually just move up here and see what this is. And if it's worse, just back up a turn, like just restart the save and just settle right here. But for the sake of argument, it meets a lot of our rules. There's fresh water. I'm getting the housing. I'm getting a 4-4 base. I have good tiles to grow into, right? No matter how big this city gets, there's always lots I can do with it. Right? Good food. There's good food tiles. There's good production tiles. I can't complain about this. Does it blow my socks off? No. But is it a good playable start? Absolutely. So we'll settle here in place. And we'll see if we regret our choice. We're getting the 2-2 from the Plains Hill, like I said would happen. We're working this 2-2. The game might want to work the 3 food. No, it works the 2-2. Or one of the 2-2s, doesn't matter. Perfect. And I don't regret my decision. That's totally fine. If this was another amber or something, that would suck. But that's a totally fine, playable start. So I think that's the last one we'll go over. I don't need to make this video 800 years long. It's just meant to be some rules of thumb. But I hope you understand what my thinking here was. Right? Freshwater, 4-4 base, good starting location, can settle within turn 1 or 2. Right? A bit concerning, there's only one luxury resource around. Each continent has 4. But yeah. Also, we have a continent split here, which is something that's more advanced, so we can talk about that in another video, what continent splits are helpful for. But this continent split here is really, really nice as well. That is something, as you get into the higher games, you should absolutely factor in continent splits into your starting locations and whether they're good or not. But I think as a general rule of thumb, you don't need to. So we'll ignore that for now. But just know that is actually a good thing that I didn't check out earlier. That having this continent split right here makes me actually want to play this game, if I'm being honest. This looks like a really fun game to play out. I got a lot of fun terrain here. I don't have any amazing districts, but I have options, right? I could do a campus here, a commercial hub here, a government plaza with another city here that has districts here as well. So there's lots of options, right? So I'm actually going to save this save as what we do when we settle cities 2 through 4. Rome 2 to 4 save. Awesome. Sweet, and there's one more example I want to go over with you. We're going to load into a save file as Monsoon Musa to show you what it looks like when other civilizations have special things they need to see in a start location. Because not everyone wants these things. These are general rule of thumbs, but some civilizations have specific things that they need or want. All right, everyone, we are back with our last example of the day. We're playing as Monsoon Musa, and this is a start from a deity game that I actually just won. So this start really worked out well for me. And you might be thinking, man, we just talked about all these dead desert tiles. Why is this an appealing start for you? Well, let's talk about it. This is the last thing you guys need to do when you're playing civs, right? To make sure you're getting the best possible capital city. So as Monsoon Musa, where is it here? City centers, right? So the place where we settle our city, gain 1 faith and 1 food for every adjacent desert and desert hills tiles, right? So right now, if I settle on this Plains Hill, we talked about this, we have 2 food, 2 production, and I have 2 food, 2 production to work. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 decent tiles to work without builders, right? I have these hills that I can put mines on, and Monsoon Musa putting mines down gives us gold, and that's what we want as Monsoon Musa. Right? But this is just a unique situation. I still want my 4-4 base. I still want my fresh water here. But I actually want to be next to these desert tiles. Monsoon Musa has a lot of boosts for desert tiles. So this start is actually really, really, really good. So if I click Found City here, right, I'm going to get extra food. It won't show up on this tile, but it'll show up if I go and look right here. 6.6 surplus food that I'm not even using, right? So you have the 2 food here, the 2 food here, and then 2 food from each of these tiles. And I'm getting faith from these tiles as well. So I'm starting my game with 2 faith per turn, right? So this is just an example of a start that would ordinarily be pretty terrible if this was Rome. That's really, really good because this is Monsoon Musa. So you need to go and look through your civ abilities and see if there's anything you are looking for. Right? There are so many civilizations that have so many different abilities. I can't possibly go through them all right now. But just check it out. Do I want to be near a desert? Do I want to have lots of hills? Do I want to have lots of mountains? Do I want to be on the coast? Right? There are so many things to consider when you settle your city. I just gave you the general rules of thumb, but it's going to change depending on what civ you're playing. And as you can see with Monsoon Musa, this is a start I wouldn't normally ever start with anyone else. But because it was Monsoon Musa, I loved it, and it was a great start, and I won this game pretty easily. So this worked out really, really well for us. And that does it for this video. It's a bit of a long one, but that's totally fine. This didn't cover everything. There are so many thousands of situations I couldn't possibly have covered, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you did find it helpful, leave a comment down below. Also, let me know down below if there's any other civ tutorials you'd like to see, if there's anything that you think was missing that you'd like me to mention in the next one. Our next civ tutorial will be on settling your 2nd through 4th cities. I look forward to seeing you then. On your way out, don't forget to leave a like rating on the video if you liked it. It helps other people find it and lets me know you enjoyed it. Also, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our awesome Civ content. Have fun playing Civ. Have fun in your games. I hope you're settling better for cities now that you've watched this video, and we'll see you in the next one.